Our fall mums are in full bloom and they're just spectacular in color, the huge mounds, but by the time this segment airs, they're going to be declining a little bit and they're also going to be in a risk of getting the first frost. Now some of you in the western or northern part of the state have probably already experienced a light frost, and by that we're talking about around 32 degrees Fahrenheit. But if you're not sure when the first heavy frost would be, let me show you an updated map here by the Oklahoma Climatological Survey Group out of Norman. And you can see that here's our map, and it's a hard freeze date, which is 28 degrees Fahrenheit, and that means things like mums or any tender herbaceous perennials or annuals will be killed. And you can see that they have it broken down into different parts of the state. November 4th, 11th, and the 18th would be about for us here in Stillwater, and then the 25th of November. Now this is a 50% chance, so that means it's a median average, and it could occur within a few days of that. And if you've kept in touch over the past few years, you know we get frost a little bit earlier than that. Here in Stillwater we've had some the first week of November, and in the fall of 1991 we had a very, very hard freeze that even went way below the 28 degrees. So the best thing is to watch your weather and get prepared. And by getting prepared, let me give you some tips for your ornamental gardens, your landscape part of it, and also your vegetable garden, which would include the fruit orchard and also the lawn. Now in ornamental, some winter reminders would be to go ahead and add some composted mulch to like pines, magnolias, or any other evergreens or coniferous plants, because they're actively growing through the winter time, so it's basically a nice mulch to help insulate the root system, but it's a slow release fertilizer. So any kind of composted manure or mulch or anything that you can put around pines and magnolias really makes a big difference in their growth during the winter time. You can also continue to plant your bulbs like tulips, hyacinths, daffodils, crocus, and make sure you get them in the right location and plant them the right side up and also the right depth. And you'll have a lot of spring color to enjoy next year from a little bit of effort going into the next few months. If you're in the southern or eastern part of the state, you can still plant cool season bedding plants like mums or dianthus, pansies, snapdragons, dusty miller, ornamental cabbage, and kale. There's a lot to choose from, again, to give you some color throughout the winter months and again early next spring. Also, I would encourage you to maybe after the first frost go out and dig those tender perennials such as cannas, dahlias, caladiums, and elephant ears. And let me show you here, we talked about this last year under the new product segments, a mesh bag that's called a bulb saver. And it was developed for bulbs that you have to replant each year, where you stick the bulb in the soil and then you plant it in the ground and you leave a little bit of the mesh bag where you can see it, and then when you dig them up this fall, it's easier to pull them up, and then you've got a label and you can actually store them this way. And over in our perennial bed, we put in some elephant ears, which for us really are not a perennial plant, and we have to remove them each year. So we're going to be digging those up here shortly and seeing how it works. And again, usually you want to wait till after the first frost so the plant is going dormant before you dig them up. Also, plant trees. You've still got plenty of time, and the fall color is about at its peak, and that's a good time to go to the garden center and make sure you're selecting trees that are in beautiful fall color, because you can select those at this time and plant them and know that's what you're going to get pretty closely year after year. And some of my favorite fall color are the Caddo sugar maple and the Chinese pistache. Now, a lot of you will be bringing your house plants indoors. Don't forget to check them for insect problems, especially spider mites. There still could be some on, aphids, scale insects, so you may have to treat them or spray them or wash them off good before you bring them inside, or you could infect the rest of your house plants, and you really need to check that before you take them inside. Now, a lot of times you'll see recommendations for fertilizing trees and shrubs in the fall, and that is a great time to do it, especially after the first frost, because the grass goes dormant and it won't compete for the fertilizer. However, I'd encourage you to keep some points in mind. If your trees are growing in a lawn area or your shrubs are in an area that you fertilize through the summertime, you really don't need to give them another application, because they're going to get fertilizer from the annual beds, the shrub beds. The roots are going to grow out in the lawn. They're going to get that fertilizer from the lawn fertilizer you put on all summer. So really you don't need to put another application on. The only time you'd want to fertilize if trees are showing deficiency symptoms or if it's in an area that you've not put a lot of fertilizer on or they've not had any attention. Again, now would be the time to do it after the first frost. And then another application you can split them up would be in late spring before the grass starts growing. If you've got a water garden, which a lot of Oklahomans do, check that water temperature. Remember, if it gets around 50 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, you need to take your tropicals inside the greenhouse. Start moving your other hardy plants into the deeper part of the pond, and then cover the pond with bird netting to trap any leaves that will begin falling. And also stop feeding the fish. They kind of go dormant during the winter months. Now roses, especially any budded roses where you have a bud union, you need to put mulch or compost up over those, and there's several kits and things you can purchase to do that, but the main thing is to get them insulated to keep that from freezing at ground level, or you'll get a wild bush or something that it was budded on. We've talked often about if you have thin bark trees and you want to protect them from rodents, you need to wrap them. You can also paint the trees with, say, like a latex paint to keep them from sun scalding. Where the sun shines real bright during the winter time, it warms up, say, like the southwest side, the cells start to grow, and then we get a hard freeze and it kills them, and it's called sun scalding. So if you have trees that do not have branches to protect them, and they're young trees with thin bark, I would encourage you to do that. So lots of things to do in the ornamental landscape. Now, as far as a garden, you can still plant radishes and mustard. If you have a cold frame, you can even put lettuce and spinach in and pretty much get those crops all year round, or at least during the winter time. You can still plant cool season cover crops like your Australian winter peas, ryegrass, grain, vetch, several different things that you can put in that grow during the winter months. And I encourage you, sanitation is so important, and now is the time to start cleaning up and till up your garden spots one more time before you plant a cover crop, or if you don't put cover crops in, till them throughout the winter to bring the insects to the surface to kind of kill them out. You'll probably need to remove those green tomatoes prior to the frost and figure out ways to use those, but lots of nice recipes in saving your green tomatoes. Harvest your pumpkins, winter squash, etc. before that frost. And if you're storing any leftover seed, do so in an airtight container in the refrigerator or freezer over the winter months. And if you have seed over 3 years old, be sure and just discard those and start over. Now's a perfect time to do a soil test because there's not a big rush in the soils lab. You can get it back in plenty of time to make corrections before next year's planting season, and you'll have plenty of time versus doing it at the last minute. And then by all means, if you have a vacant spot that you're going to put in annuals or a vegetable garden, now is a perfect time to add organic matter. Till leaves into the garden soil, compost, anything, and just keep building up that organic matter. During the winter time is perfect, where it will freeze and thaw and help break it down. Also, I'd encourage you to delay pruning on your fruit trees till late spring. Some people want to get it over with, and it's really better to wait until the very last possible moment in late spring before you prune your fruit trees. And then, of course, in the lawn, a lot of us have cool season grasses like fescue. You need to start lowering the mower height now to about 2.5 inches. Keep up with that. If you've not fertilized a fescue, go ahead and do so before it gets too much colder. And then also, I'd encourage you to keep any leaves that are dropping from your deciduous trees off of the fescue. That does have an impact on how it grows, and it can shade it out and mat it down and actually kill out some spots. And then now's a better time to control those broadleaf weeds versus later in the spring when they're more of a nuisance and bigger and harder to control. So again, lots of things to do that go hand in hand with this first frost date. And so start planning your schedule, and don't forget your resources like your extension office and garden centers. They'll have lots of information to help you get these chores done before the hard winter ahead.